Okay, this is 5.4, part 2 video. This is just going to be an example of how to solve a trig equation using these sum and difference formulas. So this will help you with that last question on your homework. I'm only asking you to do a very few amount of homework problems on this assignment, so I want you to really work hard on those. And if you want extra practice problems, for these ones in the book right here, numbers 69 through 74, if you want to pick out the odd ones so you can check your answers in the back of the book. I think I'm actually going to work number 71 instead of the example in the lesson, because I think this is more closely related to your homework problem because it's subtraction. Okay, I'm just going to work one. I think that should be enough. So, okay, so if we have cosine of x plus pi over 4 minus cosine of x minus pi over 4 equals 1. And we want to solve this equation. Now, we need to be able to recognize that this is the sum of the cosine of the sum and the difference of two angles. So we can go to our formulas on page 374 and look. All right, so I need the sum formula for this one and the difference formula for this one. So we're going to break both of these apart. Don't break one apart and think you're done. I could see how you could make that mistake. Remember, we're going to break this one up and this one. Okay, so starting with the sum formula, let's see if I could just write those. Well, let's just look at it real quick. I won't write it on here because I need the space. Okay, so the cosine of u plus v is cosine u cosine v minus sine u sine v. Okay, so I like to label these just to help keep things straight. Okay, so this part is going to equal the cosine, oh, my battery's running low. Hold on. Okay. The cosine of u, which is x, cosine u times the cosine of v minus, so it's interesting because the addition formula actually has minus and the difference formula is the one that has plus. So for cosine, not for sine, but for cosine. Okay, so minus the sine of u times the sine of v. Okay, so all this is just this part right here. I'm just going to, for now, just put that in parentheses so I know that that's that. Now, here is why I wanted to work a subtraction problem, because your homework is subtraction, so don't forget this. You are going to be subtracting this whole thing broken up. So I wish I could fit it on one line, but I can't, so I'm going to put it down here. So I'm going to put this whole thing in parentheses, okay, because we're going to subtract that whole thing. Okay, so the difference formula says, again, I'm going to label u and v. So the cosine of u times the cosine of v plus the sine of u times the sine of v. All right, sorry, I was thinking. Okay, so now remember, we must apply this negative to both things in here, right? This is going to be a term and this is going to be a term, so both of these will become negative. So let's distribute that and then rewrite this all together. Okay, so we've got cosine x cosine pi over 4 minus sine x sine pi over 4 minus, oh shoot, am I going to run out of room again? Maybe. Minus this and this. Okay, minus cosine x cosine pi over 4 minus sine x sine pi over 4. Okay, so we distributed that subtraction sign to all of that. Okay, so now we combine like terms. Look for things that are the same before this looks scary, but it won't in a minute. So we have a cosine x cosine pi over 4 and a minus cosine x cosine pi over 4. Those are the same, so they actually cancel out because we have positive and negative. And we're left with these two terms, which match up, but they're both negative, so a negative 1 minus another 1. So we've got, what we're left with is negative 2 sine x, because there's two of these, sine pi over 4. This is just one big term. And now, I'm sorry, I should have been, we have equals 1. I wasn't writing that over here to the side. All of that equals 1. So all of that equaled 1. And then this, I forgot about that right side. We got to keep that on there. Okay, so now we've simplified to this point. Remember, this is all being multiplied, so we can divide by negative 2. Remember the goal, we're trying to solve for x. That's the whole point of this. But before we can solve for x, we must get sine x all by itself. So those cancel. Sine x, sine, pi over 4 equals negative 1/2. So now we know what the sine of pi over 4 is if we look at our unit circle. The sine of pi over 4 is the square root of 2 over 2. So we have sine x times the square root of 2 over 2 equals negative 1/2. Now to get rid of this, we need to multiply by the reciprocal, right, to cancel that out. So I'll rewrite this on the next page. So we have sine x times the square root of 2 over 2 equals negative 1/2. So to cancel this out, we multiply by the reciprocal. Now we're left with sine x equals, well, those cancel, and we have negative 1 over the square root of 2. We want to get the square root of 2 out of the bottom, so we're going to multiply by the square root of 2 over 2. And we get negative, sorry, I'm writing too fast, the table's shaking. Negative square root of 2 over 2. So the sine of x equals the negative square root of 2 over 2. And we can find that on our unit circle. I'm using Wilson's Mike Wazowski unit circle that is taped to my wall because I like it. So negative square root of 2, sine is y. See, I still have to think through this process too. So where y is negative is at 5 pi over 4 and at 7 pi over 4. And now we've solved for x. All right, that's it.